Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unposted podcast. And today I have a super exciting guest. She drove all the way from San Diego to be on my podcast, which I'm super honored about. We have filmmaker, producer, actress, stunt woman. That's what I know her as, Miss LeeAnne Bauer.
Thank you so much for
being here.
So excited.
How was the drive?
There was like a typical accident at Cherry Street on the 405, which has been my kryptonite since like circa 2014, because
Yes.
I used to commute up the 405 and back every single day for work.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was like Cherry Street is like the bane of my existence every time.
You're like, of course this would happen.
every time.
Welcome to LA.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're back and forth often for work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How often do you come to LA typically?
It kind of depends which projects are shooting.
Yeah.
Like if I'm working on a project or we're editing
Right.
or there's pre-development going on, and even then in post it gets really intense. So during those periods, I'm usually coming up like 2-3 times a week sometimes.
Wow. Okay.
And then in between projects, or if I'm doing projects down like closer to San Diego, it'll be like once a month. It'll
Yeah.
kind of trickle off.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
So
Yeah. So LeeAnne, I actually met LeeAnne. When was it? It was like, what, like at the beginning of the year?
I think it was at the end of
Of last year.
Oh yeah, but I don't think I actually. No. I met you on When It Rains in LA, and we shot in December.
Oh, yes. That is
Yep,
when
I finally did.
But
Yeah.
you and George.
Yeah.
George is my boyfriend, for those of you that don't know George. But George is an editor, and he edited LeeAnne's short film called The
Proof of
Risk Rule.
Concept. Yeah.
Yes, Proof of
Yeah.
Concept. And that turned out amazing.
It did, and I'm like super excited. It's getting some forward momentum.
Was that your
Yeah.
first film that you kind of put together for a short film or concept, I guess?
Yes and no. There was another one called Traffic that I ended up, like, I produced it.
Yeah.
I worked with another writer on it. It's
Very
actually the one where I got a lot of the stunt training that I have now for
Okay.
it. I don't think it was like, it's like that first seed project where
Yeah.
you're like not really sure, and it
Yeah.
passed hands so many times trying to get it right.
Absolutely.
That I really chalk that one more up to like the good experience of it versus
Yeah.
like the final project outcome, because
Right.
it was never intended to like really do much other than
Yeah.
here's a short film with like the shit that I can do on it.
Yeah. Well, it
yeah.
turned out amazing, guys. And
Yeah.
I hope it turns into something bigger and is a full
It is
production.
Yeah, we do have some interest on it. So we have a line producer involved now, and we're talking about contacting some bigger name talent. So it's there's a lot of excitement. It's finally getting some forward momentum that I'm like, okay, maybe this is actually going to happen.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Well, it's super inspiring one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on my podcast is because you're a female in the entertainment industry, and you're, taking the role of a producer and kind of being the leader in these big projects. And there's not a lot of women in this space that do all the roles, like the roles, like the producer, kind of like coordinating everything. A lot of the time in this industry, it is men, which is fine, but it's nice to have, a female representation in that industry.
Yeah.
So I want to go back, from maybe not the beginning of time, but like the beginning when you first got into entertainment, into acting, kind of what inspired that as a kid growing up. Like how did you get, that little bug in you to come and pursue this?
It was my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up, my dad raised me by himself.
Oh, wow.
I was originally from Texas, and
Okay,
then he's
me
from
too.
Buffalo. I know.
Where
I
in
know.
Texas?
Houston.
Okay,
Yeah,
Dallas.
I know.
Yes.
Okay. But somehow we both kind of lost the accent, which is probably for the best at this
Exactly.
point.
I did have it for a little bit, and I got bullied in Illinois when I lived there.
Same. I got bullied in Buffalo. The kids were like, what is this?
Like, y'all, who says that?
Yes. You lose it real quick.
You do.
Kids are the worst.
Yeah, they're terrible.
But yeah, so he raised me by himself, and he was real big into music.
Oh, very cool.
We played like air guitar in the van, and like, oh my gosh, he had this old, you know how your parents like are the best and the worst for you as a
Yes.
kid? Like he was the best because he always encouraged music in the household, which
Oh,
is like the
that's
root
good.
of all of my creativity.
Yeah.
So he encouraged me to play instruments. He
Wow.
encouraged me to sing. He encouraged all of it in a way that was almost like embarrassing as a kid.
Really?
Like
Well,
he'd be
yeah.
sitting at like, if I had like a volleyball tournament or like, one of my music competitions or
Yeah.
something, he was so loud. I was like,
You're
know.
like, please stop embarrassing me.
He was so like, he was just so extra.
Aw.
So he was the best, but he had this like big conversion van that I was mortified about. It was always like, it's like, did you ever watch like 101 Dalmatians?
Yes.
The cartoon, the original cartoon. And it was like that rickety old van that like, you know, at the back end with the muffler. That was you. And I was just like, oh my God, this is terrible. And he thought it was like the coolest thing on wheels.
Oh my God.
It was mortifying. Oh. It was mortifying. But I just remember him rolling down the windows and we would sing like classic rock at the top of our lungs. And he was just always so like encouraging and like proud.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, I have a lot of friends and, you know, even my husband, and they didn't really get like that encouragement from their parents. Or,
a lot of, you know, my mom, my mom was like my driving force in my creative life. Like she was a dancer growing up. Mm-hmm. She's the one that got me into gymnastics and dance and music and all of that stuff. So she was like, you can do this if you want. Whereas like my dad, like I love my dad and he has come around and he is supportive of my career. But my mom was that driving force for me that was like, hey mom, I want to be a professional dancer. I want to go to LA. She was like, do it, you know? So I understand kind of both sides, having like one parent really want, you know, be supportive in that area. And then one parent like, you can't do this for a living. Like you have to go to college, you know? Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful thing that you had that encouragement, because I feel like a lot of parents these days don't let their kid kind of go in the direction they want to do. I feel like there's a lot of pressure in, especially going to college and stuff, or like going down.
He actually straddled the fence very well, you know, so he was equally supportive of, you know, the science and math background that I excelled at. I had like, I don't really have it anymore, but I had like a photographic memory for numbers.
Oh, wow.
It was wild.
I had it for like text, like memorizing, like for social studies or like reading.
I would be sitting in like during college in particular. Like I have a minor in math. I had to take like 4 levels of calculus, and it was just
I'm terrible at math, so I admire.
But
a good math girl.
I'd be like sitting in the test, and I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't have to study. I'd be like, I would remember. Oh, on page 182, halfway down is this type of problem, and I could. And I remember looking around, and I'm like, this isn't normal.
Yeah, I would like write notes in a specific way that was like so weird. I'd write it up in the top corner, like this is this, and I would just like,
and you'd remember,
and I would remember, you like could with see spelling or something like that,
and you could see
it, yeah. It's a really strange thing. It's really
cool.
Weird. I don't think I have it anymore. But who knows? That's crazy.
Yeah, but that upbringing is really kind of pivotal to everything I did in my adult life, because I was in a house with just my dad, and he's like typical like East Coast Irish Catholic, bull in a china shop, raising this little girl, you know. My mom and my half sister, you know, that was a very toxic relationship. So they ended up leaving when I was young. And so, but it was just very that way. So I was kind of raised like a bull in a china shop, and I got very comfortable, you know, being in an environment that was dominated by kind of hyper masculinity.
Gotcha.
You know, so, and then on top of that, just the encouragement and whatever I want. Like he was always like, be smart, you know. He's like, go into science because you are so good at it and it comes so easy to you. But he was always like equally as encouraging of music and theater and things like that I explored as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like that's a great balance, especially if you're good at science and math and that stuff too. Like that's an amazing skill to have. Yeah. That, you know, my parents were always like, well, go to school sometime so you can maybe have a backup, but I don't have a backup plan. So hopefully entertainment works out.
I know. It's kind of, which is kind of, I kind of did the opposite path. So I like set myself up well in corporate America, you know.
So after high school, did you go to school?
I did.
You do it to school?
I got a full scholarship.
Oh, wow.
I went for mechanical engineering.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because we come from a car family too. Yeah. So I was constantly like,
you were in that weird
because I was doing music and I was trying to pursue music, but I was also just very mechanically inclined and working on cars with my dad. And anytime I had an issue with my car, I would make him work on it in the driveway with me. So like I was doing brakes and rotors and water pumps and like all of the things.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so it was just important to me and to him, I think, that I not be like that damsel in distress on the side of the road.
Totally.
And
I get it.
Yeah. And it's really kind of the source of where a lot of my independence came from. And I feel like your mom mom was probably similar to my dad, and he always had this mantra, and he was just like, you can do anything you set your mind to.
Literally.
And he said it so matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it always stuck with me.
Yeah, me too. It's like, I can do it.
Yeah.
Hard. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but I've definitely been instilled from a young age that like whatever I put my mind to, like, even if it sounds crazy, and most of the time it does, like, you can achieve it.
You can do it.
You really can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I relate to that.
For
your
sure.
mindset growing up, because I still feel that way. And I feel like you definitely do too.
Yeah, I do. And it's just, it's been like the cornerstone, you know, of who I am and my character. Yeah. I'm definitely like a realist, but I always go and I just try whatever I feel like trying, because I just have always had it. Like I never wanted to be that person that has like a ton of money and enjoys my retirement. Right. I was always somebody who's like, no, I want to enjoy my money when I'm young. When you have it.
And like, you know, there's this, I don't know, I saw something on social media that was like having an abundance mindset. Like, it's going to come back to me. Like, you know, if you have money now, you know, some people are like, save every penny, but also I feel like there's a happy balance where it's like, you want to live life too. Yep. And like, what? I'm going to get to 70 years old and be like, well, I have all this money. Yeah. Did nothing with it. Don't have really any experiences or things that I can show for it.
I know. That feels like such a limiting life for me. Totally. You know, I want to be 90 years old and been like, oh yeah, I worked, you know, I worked for GM. I used to sell to the world leaders at General Atomics. We'll get into that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, we'll do all of that stuff. You know, I've done deals with the Pentagon, but I've also been in front of a green screen. Yeah. And I did this really cool, like, badass film where I played this military chick, and I came up with these great ideas, and I have 3 singles on iTunes, and I have all of these things. Yes. You know, I want to live a very extraordinary life. Yeah. You know, because there's so much of it to live. Totally. And I don't want to miss like a thing. And for some people, you know, I have family, I have close friends, and they stayed where they were from, and their parents, and they love that, and I love that for them. Yes. But it's not for me.
literally, I did a solo podcast like a couple days ago. Okay. And I was talking about this. I was like, if that is what you want and your dream life is to stay close to family, is to have a stable, quote unquote, normal life, like that's amazing.
I think that's great.
That's great. I wish it's like for each person it's different, and I think that's where like I get into like talking about social media and how everybody's lives are so different, and you can't compare. You have to just listen to what you want to do, because at the end of the day, you know what's going to make you happy, not comparing your life to, you know, Joe and Susie over, you know,
it's so hard
back at home, and it's hard.
It's so hard.
And it's impossible. Yeah. But no, I definitely am. I feel like we're very similar. I know, like, I'm younger, but I feel like I relate to like the dabbling in multiple different areas, because even since moving out here, it's been almost 10 years for me. I've done like a million things that people are like, didn't you move to LA to be a dancer? And I'm like, but I do a bunch of stuff now. And it's like, you know, the music, the social media world, like choreography, like all the things. I'm like, how did I end up with a production company? I was like, I don't even know. But
and it's great, like, though. Yeah. It's so great. I just, you know, at some point, like, you know, I still don't think I really know what my purpose is. Yeah. And it's kind of, it creates like this existential kind of discussion in my mind where I feel like, you know, I'm in my 30s, but like a lot of my friends seem to have it figured out. Yeah. If you look at their social media, they're like, social media. I know it's the word. It's like, oh, they look so great and they're so happy, and their kids with this professional photographer and their Halloween costumes and all of the things. And I'm like, and that's so great for them. And I feel like nothing when I see that. I feel dead inside. Like not dead inside, but it's just not my purpose.
Yeah, I relate to that too. And it's hard because I'm like, oh, I could look, oh, they have their kids, and you know, they have a beautiful home, and they look so happy. But again, like, we don't know their actual feelings, like on the inside.
No, and I can also totally like respect it on the opposite side. Like, you go on and you look at your IG, you look at my IG, it looks like this super glamorous lifestyle, and I look super, you know, posed and elegant. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm just like this,
I'm like, little do you know,
superstar waiting to be found or something. And then behind the scenes, I'm like 90% of the time I look like I'm homeless. Me too. You know, like my hair, like literally. Like, no, I don't look like that. I know. I was like, oh, I'll dress up for Liz today. right. You know, like that's how it goes. And
Yeah.
I'm, you know, it's like the stunts and the acting and everything on IG looks so great and so easy. But the amount of effort that you have to put into it.
Yeah.
And I know
and
that you
stress
identify
and like anxiety and like things that really make like the stunts you're seeing, like all the work.
I'm a bull in a china shop. There's nothing graceful about me. Like, I'm not even kidding. I was raised by a hockey player. You know, like I see your dance videos and I'm like, and I know that there was a piece of me as a kid that wanted to be a dancer, but like that never happened because my dad, you know, he had some alcohol problems and those things came first monetarily before some of the programs and putting money into that. But you know, in general, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. And people see some of the stunts work that I do and they're like, oh my gosh, I bet you like, that's so cool. She does that. And it looks so easy. And I'm like, if you knew the hours that it took to make that one punch look decent.
Right.
Like I'm not graceful.
No, well, you look great, first of all, on your social media. And if you ever want to take dance, I will be happy to teach you.
That's how I tore my meniscus. I tried out for my high school dance team, and she was doing, you would know, like the stick turn, and then we had to do this with our legs. So what is this called? It was a stick turn, and then it was like a whoosh, and out my knee went. All my my knee just went left, and I went right, and But I was trying so hard. You know, because I just wanted to do, even from a young age. Yeah. I knew it wasn't something that I had, you know, experience or, you know, classes and skills, but I was like, I want to try dance. Yeah. Like I just wanted to do, even from a young age, I wanted to do all of the things.
Oh yeah. I'm the same way. I'm like, I have too many things I want to accomplish in this life. It's like scary.
You have to. Yeah. Like it's really, at least for me, like it's like a super important part of who I am. Yeah. You know, and so it's like, you know, when it comes to discussion back around about kids, I'm like, the problem is I have so many other things I want to do more. Yeah. You know, and I still haven't figured out like what it is that I want to do all day, every day that makes my heart pitter patter. Yeah. But in the meantime, I want to try it all. Yeah. You know, so I
to figure out what that is.
My process of elimination has been great. I've eliminated a lot of things, but
it's getting narrower.
Yeah. At some point I'm like, you know, and I feel like you actually probably would identify with this more than others. I have this like feeling in the pit of my stomach that, and I've always felt this way, that like I was meant for a larger audience. And when I say that, it's not in vanity. Yeah. Totally. You know, it's service. It's out of service.
That's how I feel. Yeah. So I wanted to start this podcast for probably 6 years, like 7 years. And it just wasn't the right timing. Yeah. But that's how I feel about this. Yep. Like I want this to do so well, and not for money or not for fame.
No, genuinely, the idea of just fame actually scares the shit out of me.
No, I don't want that.
Yeah. No. I watched this interview with Brad Pitt, and they're like, oh, if you could have any superpower whatsoever, what would it be? Yeah. And he said anonymity.
Oh, wow.
And it was so profound. And I was like, oh, wow, I feel that in my belly. Yeah. You know, because like, I want nothing to do with the fame, but I do want to be able to impact the person people that helps the 14-year-old me, but it's somebody else this time.
I get chills. Like that's literally how I feel. Like I'm like, I'm doing this because like I moved to LA and I used to be super confident in who I was, and then I came here and then I feel like I just got knocked down, like because LA is like a big, you know, I was great in my small town, and then I got here, I was like, oh shit, you know,
LA is dog eat dog, man.
Yeah. And I became really small and quiet, and that's not who I am. I'm very like, you know, finally feel like I'm getting like my voice back over the last like couple years where I'm like, no, like this is the right timing. But I remember I performed backup dancing at some gig in, I think it was Las Vegas, but it was like a Christian gig, and I grew up Christian. So this guy, the pastor, the guy leading the event, came up to me. Now I was mute then, like I didn't talk. I was so shy. Like I danced into the thing.
I can't picture this.
No, like I was so insecure, so quiet. And he came up to me and he goes, I don't know you and I don't know your story, but one day you're going to speak, and because I know you have a lot to say. Yeah. And like, he goes, you're going to end up speaking to a lot of people. And I was like, that's so weird, because I knew in my mind, like I was like, I do have, because I talk to myself in the car, you know, I'm like always talking, just not in front of people, or I was like scared to voice, you know, my feelings on things or the things I was going through. And now getting to this point, kind of going through the journey of the ups and downs, I'm like, I look back at that, I'm like, this is what he's talking about. And I feel like it's just starting. So like, it's interesting because I'm like, now I feel like I have the experience and the confidence to be able to talk about, you know, the not so beautiful things that the industry wants you to make. You feel like you only have to like post that stuff online.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting too, because my moment where I finally felt like I found my voice was not in entertainment at all.
Yeah. Wow.
It was in corporate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to school.
So I go to school.
Okay.
Yeah. I graduate college.
Yep.
I have my mechanical engineering degree. And I started working for GM Powertrain in Buffalo.
Okay.
And it was like the car family thing, you know, and to work there in a town like Buffalo, it was like, wow, you got a job at GM. Wow. Yeah. You know, it was like a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience, and I was still young. And so I was like bartending at night and but like, I could tell that corporate at that, like I loved the money, but I hated the job.
Right.
You know? So then I hopped over to another company that was actually an aircraft and aviation company in Buffalo. Yeah. And I got into this world of like proposals and, you know, building up these detailed cost buildups and everything for actually a government contractor.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like this
How old were you when you switched over and started doing this?
25.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
It was pretty fresh out of college. Like I did my GM thing for like a year. And this was, oh my gosh, I switched over to this company, and you would have thought that I knew that the economy was going to crash, because I switched from GM, which was a part of the big bailout and the whole like economy crashing. I got out of there like 3 months before that happened. It was
They're
wild.
like, LeeAnne knows.
I know. It's like one of those things, somebody up above was like, don't lay her off, go to somewhere else, you know? And that company really was pretty pivotal and like in my corporate career, because I had a couple mentors at that company that really saw my value. Yeah. And they articulated it to me in a way that made sense. Like, you know how to explain really technical concepts to people who don't have a technical background and make them understand it.
I saw a TikTok or I listened to a podcast that was like, the smartest people are not the ones that know all this stuff. They know how to articulate and communicate something to people that wouldn't understand. Yeah. And that makes somebody smart. Yeah. I just heard somebody say that. So it's funny that you said that, because I'm like, I just heard that on a podcast.
Yes. Yeah. There was a guy at GM. His name was Daryl Johnson, and he was so hard on me, but he was also like so proud of me. Oh, yeah. It's like the tough love. He was wonderful. He kind of looked like Samuel L. Jackson. Oh, okay. Like he was like a bigger dude than that, but like just had that kind of presence about him as well. And he was the first one to say that to me, and it kind of stuck with me. And so
no, definitely. That's definitely a skill. Yeah. A talent.
And so in the meantime, I still had like this burning desire to do my music stuff.
Okay. Did you kind of let that die a little bit while you were going this corporate route at the beginning? Have
resources in Buffalo. Buffalo isn't a big music town. Yeah. You know, so aside from like a couple college kids I knew or people I grew up with that happened to be in music, I mean, Craigslist was a thing there, and you'd like go and try and find some, like post something on Craigslist, like hope for the best. Like,
get some email submissions. You know,
and like check them on MySpace to make sure they look halfway legitimate. Like, this was the time, okay? And so, you know, but it never really amounted to anything, because there's just not much going on there. And I was like, wow, if I'm going to do the music thing, I need to go out to LA. Yeah. You know, and at the time I was trying to get more into that rock scene. That was, again, my dad raised me on classic rock. Yeah. You know, I was going to like this Edge Fest show, and I was like crowd surfing when Linkin Park was playing Hybrid Theory. I was a child.
Loved Linkin Park.
Yeah.
I grew up like, I was a gymnast, like a hardcore gymnast growing up. So that was like all my gym would play. So every time I hear Linkin Park, I'm like, oh, I have to chase my goals.
Such a pump up.
Yes, I love Linkin Park. Which people are like, what? Because
this
look at me.
I think I was like 15 when Hybrid Theory came out. And they came to Buffalo for this outdoor concert, Edge Fest. And I was like, I'm just going to crowd surf. And miraculously, nobody assaulted me like as I was going through. It was hilarious. It was, I just, amazing. You know, but it was a really great time, but I knew I was like a big fish in a small pond there. Yeah. Which I know you get. Yeah. And I was like, all right, if I want to, like, I should try this music thing. Yeah. And the company I was working for had two offices, one in Torrance and one in Chatsworth.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I like flew myself out here on my own dime. And I went to these other 2 locations.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm from this other location. Just wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
And I walked out with a job offer.
Shut up.
Yeah. And
that's
so
just you putting yourself out there and saying, you know
have
what,
to.
I'm going to try. Yeah.
And this has been like kind of like the undercurrent of everything that I've done.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just have to go see, like, tell me no. What's the worst thing you're going to do? Tell me no.
Right. And I feel like people these days are so caught up with like going by the book or how you're supposed to go. I have to apply online. I have to reach out this way. Whereas you're just like feet on the ground.
And let me tell you
in.
something that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
If you want to go everything this slow route, then do that.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't got time to waste.
No.
But like that's what I'm doing, because if I sit around waiting for somebody to find the opportunity for me, I'm going to be 90 with no life experience.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm just going to wait for the callback. No. You can't.
No. You can't.
Yeah.
There are thousands that looks just like me.
Yeah.
That are willing to do a lot more for it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, I have to create these opportunities myself, because they're just not going to happen. And that's been in corporate.
Right.
And that's been in entertainment.
Yeah.
That's been in music, you know, all of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's wild.
So you got to basically LA.
So I get to LA.
Yeah.
I got to LA.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the music industry and everything is such a hustle around here. There's no, you know, at least in filmmaking, it's acting in particular, which I had zero interest in at the time.
Yeah.
And the reason was because it was like a very particular body type.
Yeah.
A very particular type of look. And I didn't fit in that mold. And I was like, why put myself through that? It was
very like exclusive to this type of people that people want to look at on TV.
Yeah.
Which nowadays is like the opposite. It's like anybody can be in this industry, which I think
is wild
awesome.
too. Because like if you look at me now, you'd be like, well, you would have fit right in.
Yeah,
but who you are in your early 20s and who you are in your 30s, it's like night and day different.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just very insecure about the aesthetic side of that industry and the casting couches and all of the things.
Yeah,
you know, so I didn't want to do that, but I did know that I had a talent in music that I wanted to go after.
Yeah.
But there's no Actors Access or casting networks or anything like that for music.
There's not. It's so hard to find people.
It's so hard, and it's a lot of scams.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And it's a lot of like.
Yeah.
People say the acting industry is insidious. You have seen nothing until you see the music industry.
No, the by far the music industry is the worst.
It is.
And I was actually backup dancing for an artist that was pitching to Universal.
Yeah.
And that's how I got discovered. And the head guy at Universal comes up to me and goes,
oh my gosh, I already have goosebumps.
Yeah. He goes, do you sing?
Yeah.
Because I had like my bright red hair. I'm a performer. You know, and the artist at the time that was pitching was mediocre, I would say. Okay. Like, you know, she was doing her thing, but definitely I feel like I stood out without trying. And he came up to me, hey, do you sing? I was like, I can sing. Like, I can. And I know I can. I've done, you know, singing lessons and stuff, but I never but I was like, I don't pursue singing. Like, I don't know anything about making music, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, get me an EP and like come into my office, basically. So I was like, okay. At the time, my boyfriend was a music producer.
Oh, so that
was like small world. Yeah. But like he had done more like EDM stuff. So it was like, I was like, I don't want this vibe. This is the vibe. EDM is like not, I was like, I want to do pop.
Yep.
So I circled around through some manager that ended up giving me really shady, weird, slimy vibes.
Isn't that always the way that it is?
And I'm like,
there's the weird, slimy connection.
He'd be like, meet me here at this bar.
Oh God.
In 30 minutes. Yeah. And I would go once and I'm like, okay, let's talk about music. He's like, do you want to drink? I'm like, no. Like, I didn't want to drink. I'm not like a big drinker. I was like, no, I'm okay. And then it was like, okay, let's do, you know, I'll help you with your music. And then I'd be like, hey, are we doing this or not? Because, and then he'd be like, oh, we'll come back to this bar and we'll talk about it more. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to actually make the music. Long story short, I ended up having a friend who's a music producer who is amazing. He's like an artist and everything. And he ended up producing all of my stuff for free. He was like, let's just do it.
That's
so
amazing.
I got a few songs together and went into labels and they told me I needed to be a rapper because I have a better sound for a rapper. Everybody was like, because I had like some fast pop lyrics that were like talky.
No, I totally get like Nicole Scherzinger for you.
Yeah. And
like Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah. And
totally.
then they're
the
like
big dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, rap. I'll try it. So I tried it and I fell in love with rap.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I
that
never
was
knew
like
that
my
about
route.
you.
Yeah.
Oh my, I never knew that about you.
Yeah. So I've like, you know, my stuff. I went and performed for Ariana Grande's like producer.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Brown.
Okay.
And out of everybody that performed for him, he stopped me on stage. He goes, what's your name? How long have you been doing music? And at the time I was like, 6 months. Like,
yeah.
He's like, well, keep going and then like come back. And I was like, okay, cool. From that same event, I got picked up from a manager who then put me in a girl group. So then I went the girl group route.
Got
we kind of tried to shop around, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then fell out. But in that time of music and being introduced to different people, like we blew up on TikTok. Like lots of, just like it was really interesting, the music industry, like the people that you talk to and meet, and everything is just so, mine was a little bit more laid out for me.
Yeah.
Just because I think I just got lucky, honestly. Yeah. But I know the grind like artists have to like try to find their path in music and finding the right people that don't want to F you over, or just take your money or, oh, I can do this for you,
It's wild and it happens like equally throughout all genres and all types.
Yeah.
So as I got into the music scene in LA and realized the sound that I was looking for wasn't going to come out of LA.
Yeah.
I ended up, so I went over to Nashville because I really wanted to do more of like, I still was like, I want to do rock. And I know that there's like a better rock scene over there. Yeah. So I was like, all right, my image is country. Let's do some country rock kind of stuff.
I love
right?
That. Oh my gosh.
So I get over to Nashville. I did fall in with a producer who was really great. And he hooked me up with a couple really great writers. And we made some great tracks. Yeah. I released them. But I really didn't know what to do after that. I was like, well, what
now
do and it's like, well, you network, you start trying. And in Nashville, like you'll be sitting in a dive bar and next to you sitting is the executive from Sony. Crazy. And you have no idea. I mean, that's just, and everything there happens over drinks. And did
you see a big difference in the industry, in the music industry from LA to Nashville? Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Nashville's just very like, I feel like the LA music scene is a little bit more like behind closed doors almost. Yeah. Like Nashville, it's in your face the second you land at the airport.
Yeah, totally. They are known for their...
It's just you land and everybody's playing out on the street corners, in the honky tonks, on Broadway, in the airport. Like everywhere you go, people are just playing for tips and just trying to get heard by somebody that's the right person that's walking by. And so it was wild because it was just like much more in your face. Yeah. So whereas LA's like everything happens in studios and, there's live music venues and things like that are like iconic, of course. Right. But it's just not in your face the second you land. Yeah. So Nashville was just different that way. I got like sick of music real quick because it was just... when it's in your face like that all of the time and you see everybody trying to go for it and what they're going through and I made connections with other singer-songwriters and hearing their story. Like I remember Hunter Hayes and Walker. I don't remember his name. That big hit a couple years ago. I'm like blanking out right. George Walker Hayes? Walker Hayes? Is it? No. What? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. I remember like I had like a whatever. Sorry. I remember I'm a rock chick. I'm not a country chick. Yeah. So I remember walking or having like 2 degrees of separation from him and them telling me that he was driving his own van and sleeping in the van for years as an opener. And this was when he already had like a label behind him.
Isn't that... Yeah.
And it was like that. And then unfortunately, like I did have kind of like a sexual assault circumstance. Thankfully, it didn't get really ugly and I was able to walk away from that.
And that was like in the music world.
It was, and it was somebody pretty high up that works with big artists right now. A producer that has a family that I never suspected. And that's how it happens. And it was made very clear to me that these were the things that I was going to have to do if I wanted to get ahead.
Yeah. And you know, I heard that coming to LA and I was like, whatever. Like no, it's like real. Like to get to the top, you have to, a lot of times, you have
to make the decision. And for me, you know, it was knowing what was ahead of me, knowing where I already was with, you know, my financial status, my corporate life and things like that. I was like, all right, you know, I'm definitely going to have to I'm going to have to starve for it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to have to live in the bottom of a van for 3 years for it.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to have to do some things that I don't want to do at that time. Yeah. Because this was like right before Me Too.
Right.
You know, and I was like, I sat with that and I sat with that.
Yeah.
And it would ruin it for me.
Yeah.
It would ruin it. And that would be like more devastating to me than not pursuing it at all.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went out to Nashville, I was like, okay, I'm going to go pursue this. And I want to make the decision if I want to take it or if I want to leave it.
Right.
And I walked away from that experience and I had zero regrets.
Wow.
Because I really was like, I
just
saw
morally,
it.
like, you know, like I feel like whenever you walk away from situations like that too, it's like the universe or, you know, whatever you believe like opens another door for you because it's like selling your soul to the industry and it's like music is so much more than just
it is, and it would
famous.
take it from me.
Yeah.
It would take that love from me.
And I feel like if you were to get to the point of like, okay, I'm touring and I made it, you know, it would be like, this is what I had to do to make it, which is like,
and even just like the touring lifestyle, like you got to sign up for that.
Yeah.
It's grueling. It's ugly.
Yeah.
And it was just like all of those things. And I was just like, I just think that all of these things, I'm going to walk away from this potentially hating the thing that, or like feeling less about the thing that gives me fire.
Right.
You know?
So,
and like
but now you still have the fire for music.
I do. Always. That will always be my first love. Always. Always. Music will always.
That's amazing.
And I start with pop.
Yeah.
In a rickety old van.
I love it.
Singing air guitar to like some Pink Floyd shit.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Oh my God, he was so embarrassing.
Yeah. I told George, I was like, if I could pick one thing to just like blow up for me overnight, like without having to climb or anything, it would be music.
It would be music.
Yeah, for sure. So, but maybe I'll do it for fun. Just for fun. Put out a track for
when
fun.
you do things because you want to do them and you don't have any expectations about them.
I've noticed that it works better. It usually goes my way when I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Because the second I'm like, I have to get this role in this, you know, music video as like a dancer, I'd be like desperate for this job.
Yeah.
And the energy was felt, you know, that the desperation, people can feel that.
People feel that.
And I would like not book things. I'm like, what the? But then whenever I would go in, I'm like, I book it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's all about like the energy you give off.
I literally was listening to another podcast with Jack Black on the way up here. Okay. Jack Shepard.
Nice.
And he said something really profound. He was just like, don't focus on who you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer. I want to be in a band. He's like, focus on what you want to do.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He's like, I want to do singing.
Okay.
I want to do acting.
Yeah.
I want to do filmmaking.
Yeah.
He's like, because when you focus on the doing instead of the ultimate goal of like what I want to be.
Yeah.
He's like, those things will come organically.
Yeah.
Because you're going to enjoy the doing of it.
That's interesting. That's a really cool way to look at it too. Because then it's like your whole identity's wrapped up in becoming something.
Yeah.
Like I want to, you know, or it's like I want to be an actress. You know, and that's your whole identity.
Yep.
And then if you don't work out, then it becomes, you know.
Yeah. And what really spoke about like that particular piece to me was like why I'm in it, which is the experience.
Yeah.
Right. So
The journey
I'm like,
of it.
I'm not like, oh, I want to be a famous actress.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, I want to be in front of a green screen tomorrow. That sounds cool. You know, I want to learn some stuff because nobody gets to do this stuff.
No.
Nobody gets to do podcasts and host it and produce it. Nobody gets to be in a music video.
Yeah.
Like we're in this little pocket of the world where it feels like everybody is doing it.
Yeah.
But the second you travel out of SoCal, you realize
nobody's doing it.
Nobody gets to do this stuff.
It's kind of nice to like visit home because I'm from a very small town, like in Illinois. After I moved from Dallas, but I go back and I visit my family, and I'm like, people think like the stuff I do is so cool.
They do.
And
Because
like,
it is cool.
It is cool.
It is
I
cool.
have to like remember, like when I was telling George yesterday, we were on a walk, I was like, we live in LA.
Yeah.
Like people dream to live here. Like
they do.
I was like, you know, so it's cool to try to get back to that like mindset. Like, no, I get to do like what? Like I have a studio set up in my apartment. Like
nobody gets to do
recording.
that stuff.
Yeah,
Nobody.
it's super cool. So it's like not taking it for granted because
and just enjoying the experience of it.
Definitely.
Another interview I'd watched not too long ago was with Harrison Ford.
Okay.
And they asked about like all of his acting experiences and getting in and out of character and how, and he said something that I was like, yes, that is what I'm after. And he was like, every single movie is like a different life, life for me. You know what I mean? And he was like, I've lived 80 lives at this point. And I was like, can you, that's
insane.
why I'm in it. I don't, you know, I want to be 90 years old. Yeah. He's not 90, but you know, but I want to be like, I've lived so many different experiences. I've seen the globe. I've you know, at this point, like my life has already been like pretty extraordinary, you know,
definitely.
and I've done some wild things that most people haven't, you know? So, but I just want to continue on that path because that's really like, you know, as much as I talk about it, I don't know what my specific purpose is, and I don't know this, and I don't know that, and I'm, you know, I'm still young, and I have to figure all of those things out. The one thing that I do know is that I have lived an extraordinary life full of all kinds of experiences already. Definitely. And I just want to continue on that path.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, I always say that I was like, what's my purpose? And it's like, I feel like it changes too.
It does. I think so.
You know, like my purpose has like served different people in different areas. Like even since I was young, you know, that I'm like, maybe my purpose right now is like more mental health focused and you know in this bubble, but maybe it'll change in a few years and I'll go down another path and everything kind of stacks on itself, which is I think super cool.
It is.
Like being in this position now, I'm pulling from every weird experience I've had. Yeah. You know, I'm like, oh, I can do that. Oh, you know, like I had an interview the other day with a big fashion brand to like do their like kind of their direction for their stuff. And they were like asking about my resume and like my stuff I've done. Cause most people just, you know, not most, but some people go like one direction and stay on that path. Yep. I'm like, well, I can shoot. I can edit if I, you know, for social media, I can direct, I work with, you know, I can produce the whatever you need. If you need models, if you need this, because I've done this, and they're like, wait, you've done so much different stuff. And it almost feels like I'm like lying about it because I'm like, no, I've really done all this stuff in a short amount of time. But it's because I'm like very like, okay, now I want to do that. Okay, now I want to do that. Now let's try this because this feels right in the moment. So yeah, it's definitely like, I feel like I know me. I feel like we're very similar. My life is like, who knows what the heck I'm going to be doing.
I'll tell you what, if you had asked me 4 years ago, you know, 4 years ago, I'm a director. Yeah. I'm selling military drones. Okay. I'm traveling all over the world. Yeah. The only female in a man's world.
So let's go to that time in your life.
It's right after Nashville.
Perfect. So you
after
did the music
Nashville
thing.
Yep. Go do the music thing. Get my singles. Decide I can't deal with the industry folks. So I come back to SoCal. Because I missed the lifestyle in SoCal. The lifestyle's cool. Like I wasn't going to go back to Buffalo. I wasn't going to go to Houston. Like I had to go back to where like I felt a little bit more grounded because I definitely like that whole experience and thinking that the thing that I like loved the most could maybe be the thing, you know, it shakes you. Yeah. You know, that shook me a little bit. So I come back to SoCal to kind of like regroup. And I had kind of, and this whole time throughout the entire, since I've graduated college, I've always had the full-time job. Okay. Right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So now I'm working for another aviation company. Okay. I'm still doing the proposals, whatever. I'm trying to like dapple in the dating scene. Okay. Which I was in like Newport Beach area. Okay. Which is a very weird dating scene. It's like not real life. Like there's so much affluence there that they just assume that every pretty girl is like looking for like a free meal. I'm like, no, I have a job.
Yeah. You're like, I don't need that.
It was like a very bizarre culture, like dating culture there. I'm sure. And it was like a resort there.
Yeah,
Everything
it's like
looked
another world.
resort.
Yes. I've been to Newport and I'm like, I feel like people retire and like, come here and like,
it's
living
very
their own weird.
It's like sugar daddy undercurrent. Like, it's very weird.
Newport Beach, if you're looking for a sugar daddy. No,
Yeah. So, I really wanted to, I came back from Nashville and I really like wanted to like regroup and reground. And I felt like something about that area was not doing that for me. I was like, I just want to be around normal people, normal jobs.
Right.
I always felt this pull to San Diego. Always.
Okay.
So
San Diego's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Super
and
nice.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to San Diego. I had gone from like LA to Orange County.
Yeah.
Now we're going towards San Diego. I was like, this is the last stop before Mexico.
Right.
So
Yeah,
next stop is like Salsa Dancer and like Ensenada or something. Like, I don't know. I speak Spanish, so we'll try that out, you know? And so land in San Diego. The commute was way too much. I was taking the train. So I'm like, all right, I actually need to get like the corporate job in San Diego.
Yeah.
So this company, General Atomics, picks me up. And things got so like wild. But this was like the pivotal moment in my life, at least as far as having my confidence in my voice.
Right.
They promoted me up through the management team so freaking quick.
Wow.
Because they were really looking for, because I was just very, like, I knew my stuff.
Yeah.
I've always, like, I have a lot of ethic, like work ethic and stuff. Like if I'm going to get into something, like George, you know how I am. Like if I get into something, I get into it.
Yeah.
Like I know it in and out, left, right,
Yes.
center. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
And so they promoted me very, very quickly to a director level position. And so I'm literally the only girl in this executive management team. And we're traveling all over the world selling like these big like the Reapers and the Predators that you see in the movies.
Yeah.
That was a product I was selling. We're doing deals and phone calls with the Pentagon. I was in New Zealand. I was in Japan, like with the world leaders. And I'm doing these large scale negotiations. And I was extremely like, it just gave me an amount of confidence that I didn't have prior to that.
Yeah.
They just gave it to me and they were just like, yeah, you got this. Go ahead.
Well, because I mean, I feel like, I mean, they saw the work ethic, all the years, they could tell this girl's gonna, you know, show up.
I commanded a room.
Yes.
You know, if I was given the opportunity to, I was going to command the room.
Yeah.
And I was going to say exactly like when you in your interview and you're like, oh no, I've done all of these things.
Yeah.
And you say it with poise and grace, but also very matter of fact.
Right.
It's a rare trait.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they really promoted me and got that done. And it was, again, another experience that I was just like, this is so extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I was working with all former politicians and former military.
Wow.
I was like one of the few civilian folks that was working at that level. So there was very much this military hierarchy.
Yeah.
And there was very much a lot of politics.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Gosh.
Oh, yes. A lot of corruption, a lot of politics when you got up to that level. And it got to a point where, like that was starting to really like suck the life out of me.
Yeah.
Having to play all of the games. Like it wasn't enough to be good at my job.
Yeah.
And travel the world and do what I wanted to do. And be good at negotiations. And good at, you know, briefing people that like so high up in the world with so much power.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I had a team of like 15 underneath me.
Yeah.
You know, I was managing people and their careers and trying to be an inspiration and foster their development.
Yeah.
And the wild part was like, I didn't even ask for any of it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go into that job and be like, I want to be director within a year.
Right.
It was like,
It
hey, this
so
person's
fast.
retiring. We think we see a little something in you. Do you want to? And I remember taking a pause and I was like, do I want to manage people? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but I did because it was an experience and I was just like, and the money was so good.
Yeah.
The money was so good.
Yeah.
And I got to travel first class internationally. I got to see Australia, New Zealand. I got to go overseas, like to Europe. I mean, I was everywhere. It was wild. It was beautiful.
Jeez.
You know, but it was, and there was a lot of power that came with it. And it was just, you know, but it just got to a point where I was like, okay, this is sucking my soul.
Yeah. When did it get to that point? Like, because I feel like, you know, you got promoted very fast.
Very quickly.
And I feel like a transition like that in a job, in a workforce that you were working in, I feel like with a lot of, what's the word? not pressure, like a lot of pressure on like the deals and the job.
There was a ton of pressure on my plate also.
How did you adapt to that and then get to the point where it was like, I can't, it's too much?
I mean, it wasn't like, there wasn't like a switch where I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
There were so many, because of the highly like militaristic background of most folks that worked at that company. Yeah. It almost had that like imagine you're a part of a military team. Yeah. Like your team, your battalion, your group. Yeah. They're at that level where you're just like you're in like quasi leadership, but you're not like the CEO or the CEO. You're not part of the C-suite, right? You know, you're just below it. Yeah. At that level, it was like, it was so wild because as much as like I hated the job, it was like these were my men. Yeah. This was my team. Yeah. I can't let them down, right? Because if I asked them for the shirt off their back. They would give it and then some. Yeah. Over and over, like vouching for me. Like, you know, the couple of folks that were actively engaging in some of the politics and corruption in the company, they were, you know, on my behalf, like going and saying things to those folks, like, stop it. Yeah. You know, it was very... I don't want to use the word brainwash because it's not the right word. Camaraderie. Okay, yeah. There was a camaraderie in that company that made me hang on longer because it was like a military camaraderie that you would have as if you were on like a special forces team. Right. Like they were going to kill others for you and you would do the same. Like and so it's really wild and it's actually where Risk Roll came from. Yep. Wow. Yep. So being the only woman. Yeah. Right. How, I guess, because I know what it feels like to be an only woman in a room and it's hard. It's really hard to be. What was your experience? It's not hard for me.
It wasn't hard.
And I think because I was raised by my dad. Yeah. I have just always, for me, it is much easier to be in a room full of men than it is to be in a room full of women. If I'm in a room full of, I'm just very uncomfortable. I feel a constant need to please, to be perfect, to be like, you know. But in a room full of men, I'm like, my little bull in a china shop gets to shine. Yeah. You know, I can like, and they feel, I think, a sense of comfort around me because I am a woman, but I like welcome the crudeness and the crassness. Cause that's what, I mean, my dad was, he was a hockey player. Yeah. You know, like he was an alcoholic, a hockey player, and he dabbled in drug dealing. Yeah. So like the crude and crass comments were like kind of felt at home to me, you know? Right. So, that's kind of where I've always been more comfortable.
Interesting.
You know, and the few women that were in corporate America that maybe had an opportunity to take me under their wing as a female, were not doing that. It was the opposite. A lot of competition. Yeah. Yeah. Viewing me like competition. Wow. Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because I know like you being raised how you were, it gave you the confidence to step into a room with you know,
these are like men. Former Navy SEAL people. Yes. Like the good thing about the way that I was raised too is that East Coast is like very direct. Yes. My dad was very direct. Yeah. I'm very direct. I'm not afraid of conflict. Yeah. You know, we had a house where we shouted until we shouted it out. Yeah. And we landed on the other side. Yeah. You know, like that our house was loud. Yeah. Like, and that was fine by me. And within the corporate environment, like, were there men that made passes at me? Yeah. Duh. Like, course. You know, I'm the only girl in the room. I was an engineering major, like, and I don't have a pocket protector and glasses and braces, you know, like I'm very aware that like, I mean, a lot of times in the end, like I would make them uncomfortable. Yeah. You know, that's so good, it was an interesting dynamic. Yeah. But like, have I been propositioned in the corporate world by men, especially in the fields that I've been in? Of course. Of course. And most of the time, you know, it's coming. Sometimes you don't. Yeah. But like, I'll tell you what, there was like a couple of advances that I had gotten like more recently in my career in corporate America, but they were so like direct. I was just like, no, I'm good. You good? Yeah. Like, that's not where I'm going to go with this. So you do you. But, you know, I was just like, but I didn't, didn't take offense to it.
Right.
You know, I'm not easily offended by
Right.
it. They're just like, you want to do this? I'm like, no, I'm good.
No, I'm okay.
It's fine. Like,
See,
I don't.
you didn't let anybody walk all over you. And I
Nope.
think that's why, you know, you were so accepted in an environment like that. Because I also have seen, you know, places where there's one or two women and they're just walked all over. So I think it's inspiring to see a woman in that position and be a leader in that position.
You have to, because otherwise the outcome is not going to be all the work you put into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to get an opportunity that I want if I don't make it known that I'm looking for it or trying to make opportunities to happen.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to get the film that I wanted
Right.
unless I came here with, you know, excuse my language, but with my dick swinging.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't have one, but like, that's the energy that you have to go into it with. And oddly, like, that's what garners the respect.
Yeah, definitely.
And the second you have the respect, you got it made.
Yeah. So just because I know there's probably a lot of women that would listen and maybe they don't have that confidence yet, is there any advice you would give to somebody that, you know, wants to be more respected, maybe in a workplace with more men, or maybe they just want to level up in their career and kind of get to that next level?
Yep.
Is there any advice you could give for maybe a woman, specifically a woman who's maybe not so confident?
I think the unfortunate circumstance that we're in, the fortunate and unfortunate circumstance that we're in is it's 2020s.
Yeah.
Women have come a long way, but they have so much further to go.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking about male-dominated industries, we're talking about technical fields. We're talking about entertainment, especially on the crew side, the creative side.
Yeah.
Extremely male-dominated. Yeah. And unfortunately, the rhetoric and the actuality of the circumstances, you still have to know your job as a female better than they do.
Yeah.
The biggest amount of confidence or like tips or expertise that I could give is know your job.
Yeah.
And then use that, like always outsmart.
Yeah.
Always outsmart.
Yes.
Like always know it in and out and left and center so that you're the person that they have no choice but to rely on because you're the only one that knows it.
And there's a confidence that comes with knowing your shit.
With knowing your shit. Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't have to be not confident about this because I know what I'm doing.
That's
you know?
right. I mean,
Definitely.
but also be humble enough to know and learn when you don't.
Yeah.
You know, don't go into a room and just guess at something to make it sound like you know it. Just be like, yeah, I don't have that ready for you today. I'll have it for you tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah. And just like even you saying that, like just so matter of factly, it's, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I trust that you're going to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like
you never want to approach that kind of a circumstance. Be like, oh, I don't have that. Is it okay if I get it for you tomorrow? Is tomorrow okay? No. Knock it off. Knock it off. That's what I mean, I have a lot of mentors, mentees rather, in the corporate environment that have gotten walked on before. I'm like, no, we don't approach conversation that way.
Yeah.
You know your stuff.
Yeah.
Own it.
Yeah.
Be like, no, I don't have that. I wasn't asked to prepare that today. I'll have it for you tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah. Definitely.
Can you get it tomorrow? No problem.
Right.
Then that's what you say.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, that's how it is. And that's how it needs to be both in entertainment and, you know,
and I think women have a harder time, you know, approaching like confrontation, not even confrontation, just like conversation in general with a little bit more authority. Cause it's that people pleasing, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like having to overly apologize.
I think that all comes from my upbringing.
Yeah. That I'm really trying to get over. Like I've always been, I'll tell you whatever the heck is on my mind. Like, let's do this differently. Like George knows I'm very like, I don't like that. Like very straightforward. But I also have struggled in the past with getting to the point that I am at now. Yeah. With just being like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like apologizing for shit I shouldn't. Like, why am I apologizing right now for, you know, random thing, you know, things that I'm like, why am I apologizing? I was never told to do this. You know,
there's a way to go about it where like, you don't have to like everything that everybody says. You don't have to agree with everything everybody says.
Definitely.
But you don't have to address it either.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're, you know, if you're like, LeeAnne, you know, I don't really like your shoes. Yeah. And we start talking about my shoes because I'm really excited about it. Yeah. You can politely be like, oh my God, that's so great. I actually went to the store and I got these pair of shoes. Yeah. Because that's, you know, it's like, know your audience, have the social like skills to be able to do those things. And it's a navigatable territory for sure. But you can't, you can't be socially inept either.
Yeah.
Like you need to be socially apt and you have to be confident. Those are the two things that'll get you further, no matter the gender.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's great advice for everybody, because I know we haven't hit that topic really in any of my episodes, so I'm like, this is a good one. So you got out of your intense.
So I was so that specific company got very intense. It just got to a point where it was like Monday was rolling around, and Sunday night I had to have like a de-stress shower and a bath and engage in these like rituals so that when I woke up on Monday, I like didn't feel like I hated life so much or something. Like it was just very, and that's not like who I am. I wake up every day and I'm like, all right, life.
Yeah, that's how I am.
You know what
too.
I mean? Like even if shit gets me down, I'm like, all right,
hey,
well,
it's another day.
Here's okay. This is how we're gonna do. Like I've always been a problem solver.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, this sucks. What are our options? Okay, we can do this, and then we pile through. And so, but I had to leave that job, and then I went to my husband, actually, this was shortly after the pandemic, because up until this point, I was still doing live music on the side.
Yeah.
I had a guitarist. I was out singing in San Diego.
Very cool.
But then the pandemic hit and it was like everything stopped.
Yeah.
And I had this very intense job and it was very heavy and there were politics and there was a lot on my shoulders. Sure. And, there were salaries of like 15 people that I was trying to keep employed despite the fact that there was all this remote work and all of these budget cuts and there, government contracting, when there's significant military cuts and military spending cuts, like that directly affects government contractors, especially at this level. So it's like trying to make all those things work and also not having my creative outlet.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in my life that I had, and right before that, my dad finally passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was, I say finally as if it was expected and it wasn't, unfortunately. He had been going downhill. Yeah. And he ended up passing away from just like alcohol induced brain damage. So it's like all of this stuff going on and I didn't have my creative outlet. And my husband approached me and he was like, I think you should try an acting class.
Wow.
And he's like, because I have never been depressed. I was not, I was really sad when my dad passed for a little bit, but I wasn't like, I could still go find things to do that I could get enjoyment out of.
Absolutely.
There was a point where I was reaching for things that used to make me really happy and they weren't giving me happiness anymore. And I was trying so hard just to not feel oh my God, it was like all encompassing loneliness. Yeah. It was awful. Yeah. And so I did. Yeah. I was like, let me go try the acting class.
That's really cool that your husband is the one that kind of pushed you in that direction.
Because he had been doing it for 10 years and our personalities kind of like sync up pretty nice because he's the dreamer and I'm the executor. Yeah. Right. So he has all these big dreams about doing all of these things and like loves to talk about it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go do it. Yeah. Like I want the experience. So let's go do it. Exactly. So it kind of matches up nicely that way. But I did it and I was like, you know what? Maybe this is that thing where I serve the larger audience. Yeah, definitely. Maybe like this is where I can have an impact and send a message. And I still don't know how. Yeah. I don't know if it's in front of the camera. I don't know if it's behind the camera. I don't know where it is. Yeah. So I'm just doing whatever I need to do to make it happen and fill the cup. Yeah. So... the industry is a motherfucker. Yeah. Yes. That's just the facts of it. And there's a ton of rejection. I have been rejected my whole life.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like I was not, I was an ugly duckling. We had no money, single dad, alcohol problem, like that's just, those were the facts of it. Yeah. And so the rejection piece of it hasn't been hard. What has been hard is trying to get people on my team to make opportunity happen.
I get it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's hard to get, because this industry is so based around like, an opportunist mindset. Yeah. Everybody wants something in it for themselves. Yeah. And a lot of time it's money. Yeah. and if somebody's not, providing money or whatever, like people don't want to be a part of it. But it's like, yeah, it's all opportunists, with, and just hard to, because I'm somebody that I'm like, I want my team of people and like we're gonna grow together and we're gonna do this, or just have your like fallback supporters that are supporting your dreams and your visions and want to help. And
and it's weird because there are like industry standards about how that should look and how it should go. Yeah. And that has not been my experience at all. Yeah. Like it's like, oh, go get the agent and the reps and go get your headshots and go post to these jobs and get your auditions and then you'll start booking, and it's all of these things. And unfortunately, it's just like not the reality of it.
It sounds great on paper, and that's what they tell you to do. And sometimes it's worked for people, but
and it's such a constant like letdown, honestly, because it's like, you get the rep that you're dreaming about. Oh my gosh, this person reps this other thing, or
exactly,
this happens, or
this is my next
this management team. Oh my, okay, now my career, I'm gonna get those big network auditions, and my career is gonna take off because somebody's gonna see that little quirkiness in me, right? Like that's what we're gonna do, right? And then they do nothing. And then you sit here, for
and then it's
years,
like you're like waiting for them to
realize you, and you work your ass off, and you're on this like, hamster wheel trying to get them to notice you, to put the effort in, and it just doesn't happen. And then on top of that, there's strikes, and there's streaming, and there's pandemics, and there's all of these things that are like turning the industry upside down. That like I don't know if I know what ass and elbow is at this point. Like I'm not real sure which direction is up. I don't think anybody is now. No, and so the only thing I've been left to do to like continue to serve my own soul is make it happen for myself as much as I can.
Back to, what you're saying, like you have to make it happen for yourself, not just waiting around for like your agent or your management to do it for you. Like
nobody's going to hand you the opportunity, especially in the market today where, quite frankly, the people that look like me are just not really in high demand. Crazy. It's just, and that reset of the market was certainly needed to a certain degree, of course.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But at the same point, it's been really, really difficult to get any traction through like the normal or the standard route. And instead I've had to go down and like, put time, effort, and money into my own projects, into picking up stunt work, into, my whole portfolio of work. And making connections to make my own content. It's all about making your own content right now, at least for me.
I mean, that's everything. People are now we have a platform where we're able to kind of take that next step on our own, where social media used to not be like a thing, but now we do have a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of put things more into our hands. Like I can't tell you how many jobs I've booked just of being on social media and networking on social media. So it's like taking, going out networking is still good, but you can still do that nowadays on like online. So it is kind of nice to be able to kind of post for yourself and network for yourself on social media. But then there's this like, I feel like there's this gap between like, okay, maybe lower paying jobs, whatever paying jobs, to like the big jobs. It's like, how do I get those auditions over there with having a manager that believes in me? Because I see them doing it for other people. You know what I mean? And it's just like getting over to that side of their roster that's like, oh, these are the ones that I'm going to pitch for the big
And I wish
gigs.
that there was like an answer. I have no answers because I'm also somebody that's really not getting a lot of those. I did just get like a bigger audition about a week ago.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, yes, I would love to play opposite Nicole Kidman. Let's do that.
Absolutely. Let's.
But it's like, but it's like those are few and far between. And honestly, what I've been spending most of my time on is creating my own movies and my own content. Like this, I mean, I'm here today because I had an audition that was a self-submittal for an in-person audition a year ago for 7 Days to Hell.
Wow.
And I showed up in the room and, Mitch and Shane happened to like what I brought, and that was that.
Wow.
And it's just weird how there's been like so many different little tentacles that have come off of just the extra effort that I put in to get my ass up to LA for a 10-minute audition that wasn't through my team.
It's crazy. And now you're going into filmmaking yourself and coming up, kind of going into the world of like directing, producing,
Yeah.
writing, script writing, all that stuff. How has that experience been, you know, so far? I guess now we're in present time.
Oh God. I mean, there are moments where it's super fucking rewarding.
Yeah.
And there are times when I literally want to rip my hair out.
Yeah.
Because I cannot believe, like, I mean, corporate America or entertainment, the egos are all still the same.
Yeah.
The, you know, the rhetoric about, you know, females in the workplace and having creative control and things like that is the same.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, and so it's just, it's like, you know, same pig, different lipstick.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
But what I am grateful of is like I have a certain skill set from corporate America that I bring into that side of it so that like nobody can really toss me around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I have what I think is a unique skill set with my background in contracts and negotiations and proposals and understanding like complex business models, being able to coordinate a large team of people.
Right.
Like all of those really lend nicely into film.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't have that background, I probably would have already gotten pushed around quite a bit and probably had some projects that came out.
Right.
You know which one I'm talking about, George. That wouldn't have worked out nearly as well as I think that they came out.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so it's
definitely.
just, you know, there's still constant. It doesn't get easier because I went from corporate to entertainment.
Yeah.
It's the same issues.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say though is like seeing the end product and knowing how big a hand you played in it and just like seeing my vision come to life.
Yeah.
You know, Riskroll was so special and is still so special because of my background in GA and working with those folks. I don't have a military background.
Yeah.
But having been in that military type environment
Definitely.
and being able to put forth female driven content
Yeah.
in front and behind the camera.
Yes.
It's fucking profound.
Yeah. It is.
It really is.
Every director almost that I've worked with in my almost 10 years being here.
Yeah.
From dance to music, most are men.
Yeah.
Like this industry is run by men and it doesn't have, I don't think it has to be. There's a lot of.
No, I think there's some really beautiful things going on right now in the industry.
Yeah.
For females behind the camera, in front of the camera.
Definitely.
You know, there's still definitely a lot of gender bias. There's a lot of age bias specifically towards females.
Yeah.
But I'm really encouraged at some of the movement that I see being made in both of those arenas.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I'm going to have a career in 10 years.
Yeah.
I still don't know that.
Yeah.
Because the industry right now, you know, that's only allowable for established actresses.
Yeah.
But you know what? 10 years ago, it wasn't even allowed for them.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
It's come a
so
long way.
It's making moves in the right direction.
Yeah.
And you know, most of the time I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I know that I have the confidence to make things happen.
Yeah.
And so that's what I focus on.
And you're dedicated
honestly.
to learning and growing. And
I love
think
learning.
That's like the most important thing. I think if I were to give advice to anybody trying to get into entertainment is like go on set as like a PA and just like ask questions and learn and like just be passionate about learning. I feel like, you know, once people get to certain ages, people want to stop learning because they think that they can't learn or compete with, you know, the upcoming people or the people that have been in the industry for a long time. And it's like, I truly believe like you can step into any space at any age and be successful with the right mindset.
Yeah.
And just the openness to learn.
For sure.
And it's fun. I think learning and like, the fun of life is like the journey of it.
It is.
And I tell George that it's not like, well, when I get here, I'm going to be happy. Like I try to like completely turn that side of my brain off because no, it's the journey that makes it enjoyable and makes it exciting. It's not the end product.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
And that's what I keep saying about this. I'm like, would I love to be on set with some of these like huge people, A-list talent. I'm talking like in front of the camera and behind the camera, millions and millions of dollars of equipment and on set. Absolutely.
Yeah, of
but you know
course.
what I'm not going to forget? The 2 days that we shot Risk Roll in December. I won't forget that for the rest of my life.
Yep, exactly.
At Strategic Operations with like Kevin Kent, who's done like these he was in 13 Hours. He's worked with Michael Bay. And this is the guy teaching me, you know, how to strategically and tactically move through a room to clear it. I'm never going to forget that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody gets to do that stuff. Nobody.
No.
You know, so I like really truly try and focus on like being in that moment and enjoying it, even though it's always a rush.
Yeah, it is.
You know, just
soak it up.
Just last week we were doing overnights and we had to create like a post-nuclear world.
Yeah.
And just being a part of that and like setting, this lighting looks really cool. And how are we going to make this look like Fallout? Let's throw some flour in the air.
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
It's wild. And I'll just, you know, these are not big sets. These are not millions of dollars.
Yeah.
This is actually extremely low budget. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But we're making the most out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to forget
turned out
it.
great. It's turned out amazing.
Yeah.
And
you know what? Like, God willing, like Risk Roll is starting to make some movement, and that will be the millions of dollars of sets.
Yeah.
And that will be a really great experience. And that will be the opportunity that I get a chance to connect with an audience to make a difference.
And I believe that that time is coming for you.
I hope so.
Because,
you know,
you're so driven and like dedicated to, you know, just pursuing your passions, and you have big, large goals. And I believe people that don't quit, they're going to find their way.
Yeah.
But I want to end with just the last little, because, you know, again, I feel like you have a very unique personality where you are very driven and hardworking, and with social media and things these days, you know, like we said earlier, like Instagram is a highlight reel. So any advice you would give to people that are comparing their lives, but almost are like held back, I guess, from comparing their lives? Like, I know there's like so many people like, I want to do this, but I'm scared.
Yeah. It's debilitating.
Yeah.
It can really be debilitating if you focus on it.
Yeah.
You know, I think social media is such a curse and such a blessing at the same time. I've made a lot of connections through social media.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I've gotten a lot of auditions. I've gotten a lot of like just network folks, you know, with crew, with post, with everybody. You know, I think I originally found George through social media.
Yeah. Crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's wild how much is at your fingertips, but how detrimental it can be to your mental health at the same time. I definitely slip into every single day the comparison monster.
Yeah, me too.
You can't get around it, but you need to learn how to control it. You know, like as great, like, I mean, I look at your stuff and I'm like, she's funny. She's so like, she's got everything going. Like, I would love to dance like that. Like, I would love to be able to do that. I'll probably tear another meniscus if I try.
No.
You know, like that's what, you know, and it's just, but also like there are things about me that I'm sure that you aspire to.
Of course. Yes.
You know, so whenever I'm comparing,
like your stunt stuff, I'm like, I need to learn that. Like, what the heck? I've always wanted to, I just haven't. But I look at your page, I'm like, you just have this like badass, confident energy about you that I'm like, I want to be like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody has something that people look at them and say, oh, I wish, you know, I were like this in this area.
Yeah.
But then vice versa, you know, people are always looking for other people's strengths. And I feel like if you just tap into your strength.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be something like glitzy and glammy.
Yeah.
Like I can look at some of my friends in Buffalo and they've never left Buffalo and they are so content and they are so happy. And there's a comparison there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there, because I'm like, wow, they found what makes them happy.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, who knows what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever the comparison monster is like hitting me real hard, I literally just try my best to be like, to take a microsecond to think about my life and my achievements. And that's all you need.
Yeah.
Like that's all I need. It's just to be proud of, like, it's not about them. It's just like focus on your achievements because everybody has an achievement that they can be proud of that is separate from someone else's accomplishments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So it's going to happen. There is like comparison, but like, don't let it kill the cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like comparison is bound to happen in that environment. Like there's no getting around it. I admire the people that are like, oh, I just log Instagram off my phone for a month and then I come back back to it and I'm okay. And I'm like, that's not for me.
I can't do that.
No,
that's my career now on my
exactly.
social media, that I'm like, I wish I could log off.
Yeah.
Which I can if I want, but
Right.
again, I don't want, because that's like, I fight the comparison.
To me, doing like this is just me and my experience.
Yeah.
This doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not the same for everybody, but like turning it off for me is like the person that wants to avoid confrontation.
Yes.
It's like, well, no, just learn how to
just
like
cope
get
with,
the
learn
tools
how to, yes.
and deal with the conflict, deal with the comparison
Yes.
monster.
Yeah.
Figure out the tools that will make it so it's not so hard on you.
Yeah.
But it's a scary place to go to, and a lot of it is like therapy and understanding what your triggers are, and understanding how to respond to them.
So much. Triggers is a big thing.
It is
in every part of life. It's like
I have wild triggers.
Me too.
Like,
and sometimes with George, I'm like, this triggers me. I'm sorry if this is like crazy, but like this is how I feel about this from this experience that I had in my life.
Yeah.
And it's nothing I can control, but you can help me work through it by, it's just everybody's triggers are different. And I think identifying them is a good thing. Is a very good thing to be like, these are my triggers. Let's try to work through them and maybe not have them be triggers. But in the meantime, let's work with how we can avoid the triggers.
I think all of it, so much of it anyhow, is like communication.
Yes. It's all communication.
Like I talk to my husband all of the time about like I know exactly what triggers me and which are because I'm a child of an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Driven by perfectionism, people pleasing. Yeah. Those are like very, very specific and type A. Yeah. Like very too. Specific character traits to folks in particular that were raised around alcoholics. Yeah. So like perfectionism in my house and like having a calm environment that's not too cluttered. Yeah. Like, it all has to do with the chaos that I had as a child. Yeah. So I just openly tell him, I'm like, this is like really bothering me. Even if it's like a piece of paper that he's left on the table for weeks on end. I feel like George needs
to listen to this.
It's really hard because it's like, as an individual, that's irrational.
I'm like, this has to go here. He's like, why are you freaking out over this? I'm like, because I literally cannot, for some reason, this is making me react in a negative way
it's a control thing because it is. I don't know the whole background of, your family history and what your environment was as a child. But for me,
it
was chaotic. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was kind of multifactorial. Yeah. It was like I didn't have control over a lot of things in my life because of my dad's alcoholism. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was raised in a bar. Yeah. I brought cards and I played bingo and the card games or whatever. Yeah. On a bar floor. Yeah. While he drank. Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of control, and especially when he would get drunk and some of the anger and the outbursts or just pass out on the couch and I had to figure out where to get dinner. Yeah. That was the environment, but I still love him to my fucking soul. And there's that conflict there, but what the second as an adult, you get control over what is in your environment, how it is, where it needs to be. You don't want to revert to feeling like that little girl that didn't have that. Yeah. And so you hold on to it like real tight because you're like, no, this is my little ounce of control and I can control. Now I'm an adult and I get to say in my house how things are and where they go. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And when I walk into a clean house that isn't chaos, because that's what you were raised in.
That's how
Exactly. That isn't chaos. I want to keep it that way. Yep. Because that's your safe space. Yeah. And you didn't have a safe space.
That's why I'm so of a clean freak.
I knew it the second I walked in when I first met you and I saw this place. I was like, she's like me.
Yeah. It's like everything has to be in order. Everything has a place.
Everything
like
has
I have
place.
OCD.
Oh my
gosh. Growing up, I would count my steps up the stairs, and if I started on my right foot and I ended on my right foot, I had to go back down a step and then step up on my left foot. Like just things like I've always been that way. Like just very particular. But it is a control thing. Yeah. And that's why I'm anxious in the car driving when I'm not driving.
Oh,
in a
I
plane,
freak out.
In
any
form of transportation.
Any form of transportation. Yes. I've had to like work on the plane stuff too because I know a lot about aviation mechanics too, so that feeds it.
Yeah, I'm sure you know too much now.
Oh my God, I know too much. I know way too much. But my thing that has calmed me is like always look at the flight attendants.
Yeah, that's what somebody told me.
Look at it. If they're freaking out, then like be a little nervous.
Yeah.
But a lot of times too, like the pilot will be like, flight attendants, get in your crash seats, right? And I'll look at their faces and I'm like,
I know. I'm like,
this.
That's
and I
literally
see their
me.
faces and they're like, boop, 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 boop. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
Or I'm like shaking. I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel like I can't breathe. And I'm like looking around at everybody else. And everybody else like sleeping, reading a
passing
book.
out.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to calm the hell down.
In the car,
yes.
I'm constantly like,
George, I'm literally like a psycho, but I can't help it. It's not him.
no, it's you
me.
have control. And I'm like, it's not that I don't trust your driving.
Yes.
I don't trust that motherfucker over there.
Yes, same.
Look
I
what
just
he's
wanna make
doing.
sure we're braking.
Look what
and-
he's doing. You see what he's doing in his car. He ain't paying attention.
Like, we just want to make sure that the
Yeah.
people behind us see the brake lights in time.
I'm like, is your foot hovering? Is it hovering over the brake right now? I think it needs to.
Yes.
Are you doing that? Those cars,
Yes.
3 cars ahead
Yeah.
are stopping. So you
You
should
should
start
stop
stopping.
You see the red lights? Yeah. We're the same.
It's hilarious.
Last little piece of
Yeah.
advice that before we wrap up
Yeah.
is, so how old are you, first of all?
I'm 38.
38.
Yep.
And you're still trying new things,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is a beautiful thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's something people close themselves off to, even
Yeah.
after they have kids or once they hit 30, or they put these timelines, on their life based on what other people are doing. And I think it's
Yeah.
really inspiring to see you still figuring it out and dabbling in things that keep you inspired.
Yep.
What, I guess, maybe just speaking to the people that maybe feel like they're in a box and they can't try new things, or they have a timeline, because you're doing the opposite. You're living the opposite.
Yeah.
And
It's tough. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that I would not be happy if I just sat doing the same thing day in and day out.
yeah, I'm the same way.
I love that people enjoy that.
Yeah.
I wish I was that type.
Yeah.
That's an easier discussion.
Right?
You know,
Exactly.
like I love people that like, there are people that are born with and without disabilities, but are gifted in one particular thing.
Yes.
And it is so obvious
Yes.
that is the thing that they should be doing.
Yeah.
And I don't have that.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of like me, where you're kind of good at a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But like not that genius level of something where it's like, oh, well, clearly I should play the piano because
Yes.
I can play Bach after looking at it once.
Exactly.
Like,
Yes. Exactly.
like
Literally.
that's, and that's not where I'm at, but I know that there are a lot of things that interest me.
Yeah.
And I just know that I feel the most satisfied and like I'm living my life
Yeah.
in a way that's like meaningful and fills my cup and makes me happy
Yeah.
when I'm trying new things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I just keep doing. I'm like, what is the thing that's making me feel alive right now?
yeah.
And that's what I go. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
What I know is like I just got to a point with corporate America where I was waking up and I felt dead inside.
Yeah.
I had kind of been there, done that.
Yep.
I'd gone up the chain. I had all the money. I had all the travel. I had all of the things, but somehow I was waking up on Monday and feeling dead inside.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to go do something else.
I relate to that. And sometimes it scares me in the sense of like, oh, I love this right now. I have that fire. Cause I like live off that like fire and like passion that inevitably like it dies after, like I was dancing forever. I loved it. And then it became like, wait, why am I not, I don't feel it anymore. So then I try something else and I love music. Now I love this. And then it dies. And then I feel like I'm constantly finding that next thing that I'm like, I don't know if it's because I haven't found the thing that's going to continue to give me the fire, or if I'm constantly going to be chasing something to try to be happy.
You and I are like so.
And I'm like, I think about it.
I feel like I'm looking at my little sister from another life or something like. Yeah,
and it's like scary to me to be like, am I always gonna feel this sense of like dissatisfaction, always having to be finding what's next, which I think can be a beautiful thing, but also a scary thing. And that's where I am now, because I'm like, I notice this pattern.
You get bored.
I get bored. Yep. And I always need something new.
Like my husband and I talk a lot about that with me.
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to like, I'll pick something up and then I'll get bored.
Yeah.
Especially in corporate America.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Especially my day job.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, you're somebody that craves to learn.
Yeah. And that's, because I worked a corporate job last year. I was like creative director for a fitness app.
Yeah.
And it was great at first.
It's fun
so
at first.
Fun. And then I literally like wanted to cry. Like I went to work and I was like, I love the people. Like everybody's great. But I just like didn't, I'm like, no, this is, And I called my dad. My dad's like, what? You're crazy. Like, you can't quit that. It's stable. It's good pay, blah, blah, blah. Good people. It'll set your life up. And I'm like, I literally can't be here. I would be at my desk, like, almost in tears. Like, I just need to quit. And then
this has been like an undercurrent in my life too. Like, even if I started as a mechanical engineer. I went into manufacturing engineering. I did quality. Then I went into cost buildups. I went into proposals. I went into sales. I have constantly been changing up what I'm doing because I'm somebody that has a real need to continue to learn and experience. Yeah. So, like, my advice to you is to keep doing it. Yeah. Honestly, because you're going to be a person that's going to, like, resent getting stuck in one place.
Yeah. I feel like I can't fight it. I just have to accept that.
You do.
That's how I am. I love learning.
The thing about the creative side is that you can experience other things and not get.
Yes, exactly. There's the projects. That's why, I was like, oh, I want to take on like shorter projects because everything's different. There's always change.
Different.
And even my parents, like, they know this about me. Like, somebody's told me you should try acting because you can play different roles and
lives. You can live many different lives.
And I've recently actually, I'm going to sign with an acting agency. Okay. Yeah. Peter Kalanteris.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had a meeting with him. Yeah. But I think I was like, you know what? I'll try.
Peter, do you need a blonde? You need a blonde.
All right. We'll tag him. But yeah, I'm like, maybe I try, I've acted in some things, but I haven't like really like pursued acting. I was like, maybe that'll be fun for a little bit.
That's so really where I'm at. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's, it's a grind, but like, I feel like you have enough going on outside of that to keep your creative wheels spinning, and that's going to be the key for you. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, that's a great agency, honestly. Yeah. Like, I've looked into him. Yeah. He's a great agency. He's from like Daniel Hoff. That's the guy to go with. Yeah. Because you'll get some of those opportunities pretty quickly. Yeah. I'm excited. And see if you like it. Yeah.
We'll see. Mm-hmm. I need to get new headshots. That's the next.
Okay.
I have a ton of pictures. I just need more like.
I have some recommendations.
Please. We'll chat after this. Well, where can our audience find you? Instagram? What's your
Instagram. LeeAnne. It took me years to perfect that after talking on the phone with people. _BAUER on Instagram. Yep.
LeeAnne Bauer. Yep. And make sure to everything you post pretty much is on there. Like, or anything that you're doing and working on.
Yep. We got a couple. I have a couple new films coming out. We have When It Rains in LA.
Yes.
Which you helped produce. Yes. I cannot wait to see that. I know.
English accent or it was British accent.
It was British. Yeah. Well, hopefully it landed.
Yeah. Oh, it did. It did. I love. Yeah. Your scene is really
I never tried that before, but I had another acting friend. Yeah. And he's like from England, from London, and I called him. I was like, "How are we gonna do?" So, and that was fun. That was like one of those things that I had never done before.
And now you have it on your reel.
And it was just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And then, we just wrapped Blackout, cool. So that's supposed to be coming out before the end of the year. I'm really excited about that.
I'm so excited for you.
So those are two big ones coming out, and hopefully Risk World continues to get traction and we start filming that next year. But
definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, LeeAnne, for coming on
my
podcast.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I think we have some gem advice. You really telling your story is super inspiring, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people because it definitely resonated with me. So thank you so much. And thank you guys. Make sure to rate, subscribe, all the things, Unposted Podcast, and make sure to follow LeeAnne and her journey. I will see you guys next Tuesday. Yeah, we post this thing on Tuesday. Bye, guys.